Hi everybody, evening. Welcome to my 8th live Look Up with Licia video along my campaign trail. 8th time that I've done this video. I've been public 9 days, which means I didn't manage to post a video yesterday, and it was an exceptional day yesterday. That's why. I had a fantastic day yesterday on the campaign trail as an independent in the upcoming Wentworth by-election. Not only was I out in Double Bay and Centennial Park handing out flyers and talking with people around the Wentworth community, hearing what's important to them and what's irking them at the moment and trying to come up with solutions together. At least down in Double Bay, I had side by side with me Alex Greenwich, who is the City of Sydney, the Sydney State MP, who is also an independent and who announced yesterday that he was backing my candidacy as the independent running in the Wentworth by-election, and that he not only would he publicly endorse me as his preferred candidate, but is also going to assist along with resourcing with my campaign, which is just phenomenal, and obviously just is such a significant jettison forward for my campaign. As an independent, I can't plug into the resources of the major parties. So this was terrific news, and I was at his event fundraiser last night along with Clover Moore, and got to meet so many of his supporters, which I'm grateful for signed on to help on my campaign as well. So yesterday was an amazing day. But this evening I want to talk about a point that when I was out and about today, I was down in Rushcutters Bay and through parts of Paddington, some questions that I was having in regards to people saying, look, I'm sick of the major parties. And I like what your policies are. However, I do have a question of just how much impact an independent can have. That's a worthy question to discuss tonight. So I wanted to address that. And please, as I see people joining, if you have questions along the way, please feel free to ask as well. And thank you for joining this session tonight. Well, let's give some real life examples, shall we? Independent, you can have an independent candidate, an independent politician in a council at the state level, so in state government, and Alex Greenwich is the perfect example in New South Wales, or at the federal level. So at the federal level, some independents that you may know is there's a Victorian federal member called Cathy McGowan, and I'll be doing a video about Cathy in a couple of nights' time. Andrew Wilkie, who's down in Tasmania, another independent. We have Rebecca Sharkey, who's over in South Australia. Now, she ran originally with the Nick Xenophon team, which has now changed its name as to Centre Alliance. So in theory, she is not an independent because she is now part of a party. But that's just giving you some examples. Down in Victoria, there's an independent who I've had the good fortune of meeting. Her name is Fiona Patton. Now, the example I'm going to give tonight of just what an independent can achieve, particularly in today's environment when the major parties are particularly dysfunctional and divided within their own group. I want to give an example of what Fiona's managed to achieve in the last 6 months down in Victorian state government. So she managed to put up on the table and then get through some reformative legislation down there, which is basically the assisted dying legislation. So, or voluntary euthanasia legislation, some of you might know it as. So this is something that's been around in the community for a long time. In terms of polling the topic and the issue, it has an immense amount of support out in the community. You've seen people like Andrew Denton campaign on this issue over many years now. And if you've ever been touched by this type of issue in your life, then you understand how important it is to be able to die with dignity and be able to have some choice if you're faced with a scenario that we don't ever want to be faced with. Now, there's support for this legislation in parts of the Labor Party. There's support for this legislation in part of the Liberal government. So take the state government down in Victoria, for example. Support in both those parties, but also considerable objectors in both those parties as well. So they could never get the legislation through their caucus to then bring it forward to actually table for the government, for the chamber to consider. What Fiona Patten, as an independent, was able to do was to speak with the supporters on the Labor side, speak with the supporters on the Liberal side, and say, as an independent, I am going to table this legislation because you appear to be unable to do it. So let me offer it up onto the table to vote on for a bill. You make sure you get supporters in your party, and you make sure you get supporters in your party. And through tabling it and working collaboratively with all of the supporters in that party, she was able to not only allow for it to be discussed back and forth in a more rational setting, the legislation actually got passed. So this is only an example for tonight. I'll be giving many examples through this campaign of just what an independent candidate, somebody who is not aligned, has no special interests behind them, no vested interests, who doesn't arrive in Parliament in the morning to get their speaker's notes on how they are going to vote that day. They actually have the freedom to represent their community and prosecute the case. And that is absolutely what is sorely lacking in our political landscape currently, and why there has been this move away from the major parties to independent candidates. So that is what I am offering in Wentworth. And we are really starting to be listened to. So thank you, everyone who sits on the other end of these videos and then shares them madly, because the views of these has been going up and up and up. So please continue to share them. Send through topics that you'd like me to discuss for future evenings, because we've still got about 30 days to go. I appreciate your support. My new website is now live, Licia.Heath.Video.com, and it's got the ability for you to go and volunteer on that. Find out more about my campaign through subscribing to our newsletter, and there's now a live donate button on there as well. I'd appreciate your support and sharing that with everyone. Have a great evening and see you in the next video. Take care.